What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the podcast. I had a good conversation with Daktyl. He's a producer, he's a multi-instrumentalist. He's had some releases on Diplo's label Mad Decent and on Monstercat Records. His credits extend to being featured on Billboard Magazine, also on Rolling Stone's Artists to Watch and Zane Lowe's Next Hype on BBC Radio 1. He's toured with a lot of artists that I really love, like ODESZA, Bonobo, Troyboi, Giraffe, and he's released official remixes for Major Lazer, Halsey, and the list goes on and on and on. Today we talk about a lot of really interesting things. Talk about his process sampling using an iPhone, some of his favorite toys and plugins and Ableton workflows in the studio. We talk about mental health, which I think is super important and often overlooked, especially with a lot of creatives out there. And we share a lot of other really good insights and stuff into his music production process. Just want to remind you, if you haven't yet, join the newsletter. Just go to liveproducersonline.com/newsletter, and you will be the first to get new podcast episodes when they come out. Check back on Tuesdays for new episodes. Last but not least, if you don't own the latest version of Ableton Live, I'd be happy to hook you up with a special deal. You can learn more about that by going to liveproducersonline.com/buyableton. Check that out for more details. Let's jump into today's episode with Rich, aka Daktyl. The first 2 minutes of the episode were a little weird with the recording, but it sounds really good after that. So just so you know, first 2 minutes sound a little poopy. Don't worry about it. Make sure you give Rich a follow, like, subscribe. He's a great dude. And yeah, let's check out the episode. That's great. Yeah, people went all in on the Zoom filters during the pandemic for sure. Yeah, there's an app called Snap Camera that you can download. It might be Mac only, but it's by the makers of Snapchat, and you can turn yourself into potato. I recommend the potato filter. It looks really good. Yeah.
I'm going to check that one out. What you've got going on right now looks awesome. You got the bokeh effect, the sort of...
Yeah, no, I'm just blurring out my background right now because I'm actually in my parents' basement because I'm moving to Denver next week. So yeah, so I'm like, I've got shit everywhere. It's like my room's dirty, my bed's unmade. So yeah, where are you at right now? Are you in the UK or in the US?
I'm in LA right now.
Okay, nice.
Living in LA for the last maybe 4 or 5 years, pretty much.
Yeah, how is LA right now?
Nice, man. Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's quite overcast right now, which I like. Reminds me of home a little bit.
Yeah.
Generally great. Yeah, I love it here, man.
Yeah, I try to visit at least once or twice a year. I've got a lot of homies out there. Denver's got better mountains, in my opinion. So
if I had some friends in Denver, I would probably move there.
Come visit, man. Come hang.
Yeah, it's always a good place. I've played a few shows around there, and always try and take time off because that's definitely the kind of place I love the most, close to nature.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good for inspiration for writing new music. I feel like when you're outdoors, for me personally.
Me too, man.
Yeah. Actually, I want to talk about that because I did see some of your social posts with you in Brazil and some other places.
Yes. Yeah. I went about a month. Yeah. For about a month. Got back a couple of weeks ago.
How's Brazil? Never been there, but it looked pretty adventurous. You went on a safari and some crazy stuff.
I went all over the place. I've got some ties to Brazil because my brother lives there. He's lived there for 10 years now, down in Floripa, which is on the coast south of Rio. So I went down there primarily to hang out with him and meet my nephew, which was amazing. And that was fun. And then kind of I guess sort of on the way back to LA, I got 2 flights. So one went to Manaus, which is in the Amazon. And then spent 3 weeks just exploring the Amazon, which was incredible. It was really amazing.
Yeah, but I saw you holding a massive snake. It was wrapped around. Is that a snake you just found randomly in the jungle, or did somebody hand it to you?
No, it was basically, I basically hired a local guide because you have to. It's the jungle. You don't really know. Yes. Well, I didn't know where I was going or anything, so I was like. Right. Please try and explain this to me and show me where to go and everything. But anyway, he found this dude who was just had a snake, and he's in my very limited understanding of Portuguese, I gathered that he wanted to put the snake on me, and I was like, very trepidatious, obviously. But I was like, all right. He seemed to explain that it wouldn't bite me, so I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. Like, you're only in the jungle once. It was quite crazy. I don't know. I'm more scared of spiders than I am of snakes. If it was like a big spider, like there's no way I would have done it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, there's both like a possibility of dying because either one could be poisonous. But I mean, playing Russian roulette in the Amazon, that guy probably either became like a really good friend afterwards or like you hated him, just handing you a giant snake.
No, exactly. Yeah, we became friends. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's funny. I used to have a python. My mom made me get rid of it because she didn't like the way I would feed the mice to them because they have to eat live animals. You can't just feed a dead.
Yeah, that's incredible. How big was your python?
He got up to about 4.5 feet, so he wasn't huge, but he would have kept growing. He was a ball python, and I used like my senior high school money to buy it from the pet store. It was like my senior gift to myself. And I took it to college and almost got kicked out of my dorm room because I took a snake to college.
Yeah, so I'm not surprised.
Apparently there's rules against that. I don't know.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. That's wild.
But yeah, I'd love to get to know you a little bit better.
Sure, man.
And maybe share about your background. I know you originally went to school and grew up in the UK and then moved out to Cali and just pursued music, went all in. What was that experience like, and then eventually how'd that lead you into Ableton?
Sure, man. Well, yeah, as you say, I grew up in Worcestershire in the UK, which is quite a rural place. It's a very nice place. It's like, you know, it's a lot of like quintessentially English countryside, I guess you might call it. So it was kind of middle of nowhere at the same time though. So there wasn't much exposure to music other than like my friends and parents who were listening to all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like we started getting into sharing music online and stuff and learning about, you know, different types of music and stuff. I remember must have been when I was about 11, my teacher gave everyone in his class a CD of, it was like rock and funk and like some R&B songs.
Nice.
And like track 1, I think was like Around the World by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And like, I just became obsessed with that bass line. And at the time I thought it was a guitar line. So I bought a guitar or begged my parents to buy me a guitar.
Nice. That's a good teacher.
Yeah. He's a legend. Like we still talk sometimes. He's a really good dude.
Sweet.
But yeah, I got into like guitar music. I think my first guitar was like a really cheap, like knockoff Fender, like not even a Squier, like a rip-off Squier. The action on it was like, you know, like an inch thick. So I was trying to learn songs and it was quite difficult, but I think that probably improved my fingers over the years, maybe. Anyway,
Probably.
Long way of saying that's kind of my introduction to music. But at the same time, I guess I was playing a little bit of piano as well. I didn't like lessons at all. My mum got me a couple of lessons and did them for about a year, and I really just found them to be quite the opposite of what I imagined music to be. Like there was always a lot of sight reading that they were trying to make us do and scales and such. But I really preferred just learning things by ear and playing my favorite songs. So in the end, I quit those and just started playing things by ear, which I'm actually like really grateful for in the long run because I think it helped me, you know, develop my ear and understanding of harmony and music and stuff. So moving forwards a few years, I guess my brother, he's like, I'm like the youngest in my family. All my siblings like 10 years older than me. So my brother was already at university when I was, you know, like a teenager. And he was running like drum and bass nights up in Leeds. So he exposed me to like all this jungle music and like garage and like the UK stuff. And he had like a huge vinyl collection. And he would like mix on vinyl, like all these junglist records and all the big D&B guys, like, you know, Ram Records guys.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's booking like the big names. He's booking like Andy C, like crazy people in drum and bass.
That's sick.
That's my brother, yeah.
Cool.
So he introduced me to electronic music, really, I guess. And at the same time, he gave me a copy of Reason 4 on CD, which I put on my like PC.
Yeah, the Legacy.
The Legacy, exactly. Yeah, like it was old even when I got it, but it was like what I had.
Yeah.
And then I just became obsessed, and it was right around the time that YouTube was starting to do tutorials and stuff. So I remember I followed this guy, like I think he's still probably doing it, but his name was Dave from Boy in a Band. I'll never forget it. And like he was always doing crazy Reason tutorials where he would like make a full song, and you just sort of follow him along. And that was my introduction to like production, and I just became completely obsessed. I was studying at uni at the time. I was studying geography because I'm really interested in climatology, and that's a different story.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, music and geography. That's an interesting blend.
Exactly. I mean, like just where I came from, like music was around, but like, it never seemed like an option as a valid career, really. It never really seemed like something that people could do like for a living.
Yeah.
We weren't really exposed to it like that. But I guess when I went to uni and started making beats, that's when it sort of became a thing that seemed like a possibility. Because I think it was around that time I started putting music on SoundCloud, and it was right around the time that SoundCloud, you know, the glory days, people talk about it. Like,
Yeah,
it was a great time.
Everybody and their mom were uploading. Like,
it was wonderful, man. I miss those days because it was so free musically. Everyone was just doing whatever they wanted to do, putting out whatever they felt like. And I guess that's what got me noticed. Like I got on some Hype Machine things, and then I got offered to do a remix for Dawn Golden, who was on Mad Decent.
Awesome.
And through there, I met the Mad Decent guys.
And that's Diplo's label for anybody who doesn't know.
That's Diplo's label, yeah. And so I was speaking with those guys, and then around that time, I had a record that was sort of finished. And I sent it to them, and they signed it. And then I was like, oh, wow, okay, I can actually do this for a living. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's when I started really taking it seriously. And, you know, my parents were very supportive, but like it took them a while to like realize that it was a valid thing. They were like, so your music's on the internet, but you're like, are you going to make any money? Like, what's happening?
That's hilarious. Yeah, I feel like most moms out there can relate to that story. Their son wants to grow up to be a producer.
Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah, it's like until I was actually like making money and like showing that I was playing shows and stuff, they didn't really see it as like a real thing. Yeah. Not to say that they weren't supportive. They were very, you know, they're very artistic people, and they were very supportive of it throughout. But I think they were just being a little protective, you know. Like,
Sure. They wanted you to be able to feed yourself and all the important essentials. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, it sounds like you have a pretty musical family, so I'm sure that helped as far as just like your development and growing music theory. You play literally almost every instrument I think I've seen or know of. So like I've watched some of your videos and they're really dope. Like really catchy, these little melodies that you're coming up with and writing and posting on Instagram.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, it's really solid. It's really solid ideas. It probably helps you just like come up with new ideas for new pieces of music like constantly when you're just jamming with yourself like that.
Yeah, to an extent. Like I have this issue in my head where I like differentiate it from my productions. Because it is a very different process, and I think at some point down the line they will become one thing and become this, you know, synonymous. But at the moment, like my actual productions, just, you know, have like hundreds of tracks on Ableton, and like whereas the beat videos or whatever you want to call them, they're like 6 or 7 things. But as I mature as a musician, I'm realizing as well that obviously complexity does not necessarily equal better music.
It's true,
and it can sort of equate to an overcompensation sometimes.
That should be on a plaque somewhere. You should hang in everybody's studio. Like, complexity is not always better. We've talked about that on this podcast quite a bit.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm trying to work with the mentality of less is more, but at the same time, I'm very detail orientated. So all this to say that in my head, they're two very different entities. And I'm definitely, actually, the last 6 months to a year has been behind the scenes. I've been planning what it's actually going to convalesce as, so hopefully I can start showing that soon. But yeah,
very cool. Well, I'm excited to see that later. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, you also released a sample pack. I thought that was interesting about a year ago. I think it was like last August or something. And you just ended up recording a bunch of random stuff, like you chasing a bunch of chickens and like breaking up like concrete or tile flooring. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to go check it out yet, but it seemed like there'd be some pretty dope samples. I heard the preview song, which sounded great.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'll send it to you. Just shoot me a reminder. I'll send you the pack. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd love to play with it.
Yeah, it's just like my approach to sound. I think obviously this has become not cliche, but I think a lot of people know about this now. But I've always just used regular found sounds in music since as long as I can remember, you know, in field recordings or hitting a table or crunching an apple or whatever it is. And I just thought there haven't really been that many places in the sample world where everything is put in one place. Sounds like that are all put in one place for specific reasons, you know, to be used as percussion.
Yeah.
whatever you want. So I just thought it would be a cool idea, and I have like thousands of these files sitting on my hard drives. Why not just collect a few of them and put them as a sample pack? Like, seems like a fun idea.
Yeah. Did you have a specific mic that you used or that you had to record all the sounds?
So various things, man. I did some of the stuff in studio on like really nice, good proper microphone setups, either either dynamic mics or like this SM7B is a fantastic mic, honestly. Used a lot of that. But then the last 2 years, the iPhone mic is unbelievable. I've been saying this to everyone. Like the new iPhones from like the 10 Plus, the microphone on that is really, really good.
Yeah.
A friend of mine mic'd up a drum kit the other day with a stereo pair of iPhones. And like it's indistinguishable.
A stereo pair of iPhones. That's funny. I've never actually thought of that. Yeah.
It's crazy. And it sounds so good, dude. It sounds so good.
Amazing.
So yeah, I highly rate those mics. So a lot of the stuff that's out and about is just me with an iPhone like pointing at something.
Okay.
I highly recommend everyone to do that, really.
Yeah, just
if I could be watching TV or like on a bus or whatever it is, and if you hear something, just point an iPhone at it, and then I tend to catalog it and hopefully end up using it later on.
But I was looking at some field recording microphones because I was curious of doing more stuff like that. So that's why I asked. But I was looking at like the Zoom H8 is really interesting. It gives you 8 inputs and also has a stereo mic on the end that you can just use.
Those are really good. Those are obviously much more high fidelity than an iPhone mic. I've used a few of those over the years as well. And they're fantastic. Yeah, highly recommend the Zoom stuff as well.
Yeah, it's not as easy just to shove that in your pocket, though, when you're on the subway or walking around.
Yeah, it's like definitely a pre-planned excursion to go and go out and use that. That's the cool thing about that. Just having this thing in your pocket is just like whip it out whenever. And yeah.
Going back to the samples, do you have like a sound that you recorded that you use normally in like every project, like your Apple getting smashed or something?
Yes, absolutely. Not just one. I have a whole, I have a couple of folders of things that I return to regularly, definitely.
Do you have like a favorite sound that you've recorded, like a chicken or?
A favorite sound, let's think. One thing I use a lot on like every recording is the Critter and Guitari organelle. It's just a little soundbox synthesizer thing. I've got it over here.
What's it called again? I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's fun. It's just like, it's called the organelle.
Oh yeah, I've heard of these. Yeah. And you love that thing?
I love that thing. I've designed a lot of sounds on it over the years, and I use it as a sort of sound effect machine to sort of lace similar sounds across various songs, because those small details I think can obviously tie a project together.
Yeah.
So, and make it sound like someone's sonic identity.
Very cool.
Which I've realized is quite important. So things from that, the chicken sound. There's one gong I use on everything. Let's see.
Yes, I love a good gong. I think that's important, especially if you're making trappy music.
There it is. I've used that on like every song since like 2018 probably.
Is that your gong? Do you have like your own gong in your living room?
It's my friend's gong in a studio in London.
Okay, cool.
He let me record it one time, and I just think it sounds great. It's just like a nice splash. I'm not a big fan of, for whatever reason, I don't like cymbals. I don't know why. I just don't like crash cymbals. I can't tell you why. There's something about them. I've never been a fan.
Maybe just the right cymbals, because I'm a drummer, so I'm kind of the opposite. I'm obsessed with cymbals.
Oh, okay, well, don't
as
get me
most
wrong.
drummers
I love ride cymbals, and
yes.
I love but there's something about a huge crash that's just never done it for me personally. But
I feel like most crashes, I agree. I think most crashes just sound harsh and need a lot of EQ because they just haven't been properly processed.
That's it. Especially like there's hundreds. I probably just got PTSD from like a sample pack in 2010 where I hurt my ears listening to a cymbal or something. But that's funny. Yeah.
There's nothing worse than a giant PA speaker just blasting like between 3 to 6K of dirty crashes in your ear.
Yeah. It's not pleasant.
This is true.
Yeah, man.
Have you ever played with Soothe? I put that on all of my crashes or like bright percussion elements.
Yes, yeah, it's amazing. It's fantastic plugin.
Love that plugin.
Yeah.
They sponsored the podcast a long time ago, but I use it all the time.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I use it a lot. It's on my mix bus. It's on various vocal chains.
Awesome.
Yeah, super useful plugin.
For sure. Yeah, so let's talk about maybe some of your favorite stock instruments or plugins that you love.
Sure.
Do you have any like go-tos?
Specifically Ableton or just
It could be anything. Maybe let's go to Ableton later.
go to Ableton later. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, like, I'd like a lot of obscure plugins, mostly for sound design stuff. Let me see what I've been using recently. I mean, I love Reactor. I've always loved Reactor. I think that's a really powerful thing for strange tones. I go through sort of rotations of things, you know, because I have a lot of plugins. So I try and create, I guess, palettes of plugins that I use over a period of time, rather than just thinking about like trying to use every plugin on a project.
Right.
But yeah, recently, I mean, the Softtube guys sent me some of their stuff recently. There was one that I thought was incredible, which I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, Softtube makes some really good stuff.
They really do. They have this saturation. I'm loading up now. Name right. It's the saturation knob, but it's in their booklet emulation. You know, the booklet modular stuff.
I haven't played with it that much. No.
So booklet is like it's a
Or,
form of modular.
Oh yeah, you said
modular
booklet.
synthesis.
I thought you said booklet.
Booklet.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Booklet,
it's my pronunciation.
For sure. That's the legendary. That and Moog.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. But they have an amazing emulation of that, and some of the effects in there are really powerful.
Okay.
The saturation knob in there is just on like a snare drum. It sounds incredible.
Love it.
Obviously, the Sound Toys stuff, like, so good.
Yes, I love Sound
There's like
Toys.
some decapitator settings that I use all the time.
Which flavor of decapitator do you normally use? I'm always an A or N kind of guy, because the A is the Ampeg distortion emulation, and then N is for Neve. And I forget.
Yeah, the one I like is it's a Culture Vulture one. I think it's maybe T. Let me see. Hold on.
Oh yeah, I think it might be. Yeah, the Culture Vulture. I use that by the Universal Audio. That thing is thick and juicy.
It is, yeah. So one of the modes in Decapitator emulates it. So that's why. So I put that on drums quite a lot.
Love it.
Drum buses sounds fantastic. I'll tell you exactly which mode. It's mode T. Yeah. So just a little bit goes a long way with that stuff.
Love it.
But yeah, all the Sound Toy stuff's fantastic. The Output guys, Output, amazing company, make fantastic plugins as well. Things like Thermal, Portal. Those are really powerful.
Portal is wild. I just started getting into Portal. It's like my new drug. I just want to throw it on everything, but I have to limit myself because I get excited when I use it.
I know, yeah. It's definitely OP.
Arcade's actually doing like a giveaway on the podcast. I haven't even announced yet, so maybe I shouldn't say it now that I'm thinking about it. But they're giving away a bunch of plugins.
Oh, that's awesome, man! Yeah, I've used Arcade in the past for some productions. Like I find it really good for like rap production. Like it's fucking good for hip hop and grime music and like just finding quick melodies. But I moved away from it recently, but it's definitely really cool. And like overall, that company, really great. What else? There's so many, man.
We could go all day. We don't have to.
I know, yeah.
As far as Ableton stock sounds, like what are some of your favorite? Let's go with like effects.
Sure. I don't use too many of them. I mean, I use like the reverb, the delay sometimes. The main one that I found that's better than most of my actual VSTs has been the phaser. There's something about the phaser that sounds really nice.
Yeah, the phaser Are you on 11?
Yes, yeah.
Awesome.
Phaser flanger, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love it.
I find them to be quite idiosyncratic. Like phasers can be a bit hit and miss sometimes, like because they're very individual sounding, and it's very obviously subjective. But for me, the Ableton one sounds really good.
Yeah,
it has a thickness to it, and it catches more frequencies. Sometimes with phasers they'll catch some high frequencies, but not really some of the mid highs and the mids.
Yeah,
they sometimes sound a bit thin, but that one seems to just do the trick on guitars, especially.
Oh yeah, phasers on flangers on guitar. Yeah, I haven't actually even used this one yet on guitar, but it sounds great. And the chorus ensemble was a nice upgrade too, if you've played with that.
Yeah, I've messed around a little bit. And then like, what else? The Max for Live stuff's really powerful. Obviously, like that stuff's crazy. Recently, I've been making. I've got probably 20 or 30 now, very individual at least I think they're individual, but stacks of Max for Live plugins that I've created into sequences to sequence all these synths over here.
Oh, nice.
You know, the idea of generative music, generative melody, and allowing for randomization. That's something I've been playing around with a lot. And so these groups are basically just sending sequences out.
That's
and then
awesome.
you know, I'll sometimes just leave them playing for hours on end and come back and chop the audio, and you know, maybe there's something interesting coming.
That's interesting.
I love the idea of that. I mean, I can play, like, you could play a lead in, a lead melody or whatever, but happy mistakes are great. And like, if a computer comes up with some crazy ARP sequence, that's something I couldn't even play on my fingers. So it's like, I think that's really powerful, especially in electronic music.
Yeah, for sure. Have you played with any of the creative extensions pack in Ableton?
Let me see.
It has some really fun generative effects in there.
Is it a Max for Live one, or?
It's a part of the packs. So yeah, it would be Max
okay.
for Live. Yeah.
I'm not sure if I have. I'll have to check that out. Let me see.
Yeah, there's some real interesting ones.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll definitely peep that.
If you go into the modulation and rhythmic folder and you just throw that on like pad or guitar or whatever, you can do some really interesting like random generative step sequencing. It has like a dice mode, so you can just like roll the dice and change it up.
That's amazing. I'm definitely going to check that out. Actually, speaking of that, Reason definitely has a lot of those things too. Actually, tying that in, like, that's actually kind of what made me make the step to Ableton, because I have been thinking about Ableton just from a live perspective, you know, because it's like the gold standard for playing live.
Yeah.
But I'd just love Reason for its sound design and weird stuff you can do in it. But they released a rack, so you can basically get the entire Reason system within Ableton as a plugin.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. I haven't played with it. But you like it? Is it pretty stable?
Yeah, super stable. Yeah, it's awesome. So I use that a lot too, just to, you know, like, because especially the first years of making music, I made a lot of patches in Reason. So I didn't want to lose those going to Ableton. So now I have them. They're able to be opened. That's awesome. Which I was really grateful for. But yeah,
have you been performing in Ableton for very long?
Since I started doing live shows, I've been using Ableton. So yeah, 4 years, something like that.
It's been a while. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You know, -2 for the pandemic. So
right. Unless you're live streaming, maybe you would use it for that.
True. Yeah, I tried a couple of live streams. Maybe I'll get back into that. But I don't know. I'm quite an introverted person. Like, when I'm making music, it's very like insular, and I just felt like I'm either focusing on this or I'm focusing on the Twitch chat. I found it hard to do both at once, but maybe I'll get better at it.
I also saw recently you released a newer ambient record that was really cool, and I listened to some of it. It was on Bandcamp. I think it was just Bandcamp, wasn't it?
Just Bandcamp, yeah. I love Bandcamp for stuff like that.
Yeah, it was really dope. It sounded great, and
thanks, man.
I saw you donated a lot of the proceeds to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which I think is a great cause. So props to you for doing that. That's really cool.
All right, thanks, man.
Was there any specific reason or a specific thing that inspired this album and for you to work with them?
Yeah, well, it was I make ambient music to like calm myself down, really, and I think that's like a really useful purpose for it. Like, it's just incredibly meditative, obviously, and puts people in a good place. And I wrote a lot of it during, you know, the chaos of the last couple. I don't want to keep bringing this up, but, you know, the madness that we all went through.
Sure. Yeah.
So I was like, you know, even if this helps one person, this is great. Then like that's a good thing to do, to put it out. And then regarding the charity, I just think the more awareness there is on mental health issues, the better. I think it's a very important thing to have in the public discourse, and to be treated, you know, with respect and with seriousness. Because where I grew up and where in England, maybe not so much these days, but, you know, there was always a bit of a stigma. I don't know if it was like that where you're from, but it was always a bit like, you know, if people suffered from mental health issues, it was a bit like, oh, just, you know, they'll get through it, like, pat on the back, like, it's all good. But you know, some people really struggle. So I think, and I've been through stuff in the past, not for a long time, but I have been through my own issues, and like, so that really made it close to my heart, I think.
Sure.
And it's a really important issue. I think we need to talk about it more, you know.
I agree. I totally agree. Yeah, just telling people to suck it up and get over it, it's not going to make anything better. And
No, it's yeah, exactly.
it's not
Yeah.
going to help. That doesn't help anybody. There's some real like mental health stuff going on in the country right now.
No, 100%, man.
It's really hard to, even as a creative, I find that a lot of creatives deal with that never actually talk about it either.
Yeah, and I just want to be. I want to be one of the many people who are now hopefully talking about it more and just being more open about it, and also just being like maybe a symbol of hope for people who maybe are going through something. Because
Yeah.
I've definitely had some dark times myself, and like, but you know, that's like touch wood ancient history for me now, and I feel amazing. But just having that perspective on it and talking about it, I think is really important and really healthy and good. And I
agree.
think we need more of it.
100%. I agree. Yeah, especially with social media, a lot of people just post like the best parts of their life, and like that's not always real life. And so it's
No,
easy to get
exactly.
caught up in that for sure. I had a great
No,
conversation with
definitely,
Ambrose
man.
Deek. I don't know if you know Ambrose, but he runs the Los Angeles Film School and worked with a lot of amazing artists. But yeah, he talked about that for a very long time and went really in depth about
That's
just
great.
social media and the consequence it's had for a lot of mental health.
Oh, I know, man. Yeah, I worry for this younger generation, you know, growing up now. It's like I hope they can grow up with level heads and not get too messed up by this
Yeah.
social media world. Like I
Yeah.
take it very serious. I think it's a very powerful tool, but it's also easy to get lost in the source and like forget what's actually important and what's real about life. I actually have limits for myself on like how long I can go on social media on my phone. Because, you know, I hate the idea of like mindlessly scrolling. I'm like, it's such a waste of time, man.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I
do you-
also need it as a career. It's part of my career. I need to use it. So I'm trying to find, I think we all are trying to find the balance.
Yeah, it's hard, man. Me myself too. Like I definitely feel that. I feel like I've stepped off of social media the last like month or so just to help myself kind of step away. But I
Yeah, you
think
gotta do
it's amazing. It's a balance, like you said. I agree, because it's good to connect with people and with your fans and like to be authentic in that.
Exactly,
And
yeah.
and you're, posting fun videos that also pose a really healthy distraction for people as they're scrolling, and they're like, oh, this is really cool. Like they vibe with your
Definitely.
track. You're like spreading that light into like other people's social feeds.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
but you're right. It is like the endless black hole, because I remember in Facebook, do you remember back in the day where it stopped? Like you would scroll and scroll and then it just said, you have come to the end.
Yeah, I do
Kind of
remember
miss
that,
those
yeah.
days, actually.
I know, man. When there was an end to the scroll, that was living.
Yep.
That's
Those
funny.
were the
I forgot
days.
about that. It's like when you're on Netflix for too long, and it's like, are you still there? Are you still watching?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man.
That's true.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like, it's a double-edged sword, you know. Like, there's obviously a million beautiful things that have happened and creative collaborations and incredible stuff that's happened on there. But I just think for the younger people, just use it with caution. I think, you know,
Yeah.
comparison is the thief of joy, you know, and art wasn't really meant to be compared the way it is today. So I think, like, yeah,
I agree. I think that's why it's important for artists just to not care too much about sounding like somebody else and just kind of
Yeah.
like do your thing. I feel like
Do your thing.
more free in my music now because I'm adopting more of that mentality. We're just kind of like producing what I'm into, Maybe you've experienced that.
definitely. And it took me a long time to get to that point. And I think everyone is still sort of going towards that a little bit, but well, I know I am. But I feel like I'm pretty much there more than I ever have in the past, which is cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, it says a lot about you with this ambient album and donating to the National Alliance of Mental Illness. I think that's a great cause. As far as like future projects coming up, do you have anything in the pipeline you're excited about?
Yes, like so much stuff, dude. I haven't really put music out. I mean, the album is released, but I didn't really see it as a proper release, right? It was just a Bandcamp thing. But I have a lot of projects coming out, which I'm about to start talking about. And I'm really excited about. But not just that, like not just for my own project. I've also just really started being a producer for people, which was always kind of my long-term plan as a musician. I love playing shows. I love playing live shows, and I'm going to continue doing that. But I'm definitely happiest and I think best in the studio. And I've been lucky enough to collaborate with some really amazing people. So we've got some projects coming with some incredibly talented artists coming out this year, which I'm really excited about.
Dope. Yeah. Well, I love your tracks, man. I was boosting your Spotify streams yesterday in the car, driving down the country road, just blasting it in my Bose speakers. It sounded great.
Awesome. Thanks, dude. Cheers, man.
Yeah. So are you producing at all for film, or is it mostly just collabs in the studio?
It's mostly studio collaborations, mostly with rappers, some singers. I mean, I can tell you who they are. There's like this guy Kevin George. I think he's amazing, incredible artist. Another guy Benny Ola, who is one of those characters where he's like a behind the scenes guy in the music industry. He writes for a lot of really high profile people. Like he writes with Channel Trez and a bunch of other people. Cool. But he's like a lot of writers at the moment who are thinking like, I want to do my own thing. So I have a project with him, which I'm really happy about. What else? I have a song with Lido and this guy Jordan Wood.
Yeah, Lido's awesome. He's a great producer. I saw him perform live in Chicago, like 7 years ago?
Amazing. Yeah, man. I mean, he's like, he was in the SoundCloud kind of that same sort of era. So we were sort of starting to put stuff out around the same time. And then I don't know how we got in touch over the years, but we've been working on some bits. So there's a track with Jordan Ward on his record coming, which is great.
Very cool. Do you know when that's going to come out? I'm just curious.
I haven't had the date yet, but it'll be in the next. I probably shouldn't talk about this too specifically.
That's cool, man. No worries.
Yeah, and then just trying to play instruments every day. I know that's not really exactly a project, but I'm really just enjoying stepping outside of the screen and Ableton and playing guitar and playing piano a bit more. That's what I'm really sort of driving towards at the moment.
That's fantastic. Yeah, well, I'm excited to hear more projects and see what you have coming up. Sounds like you have some good collabs in the pipe. So
definitely, man. Likewise, I'd love to check some of your stuff that you got coming. It would be really cool.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. I guess that's a good segment into where's the best place for people to connect with you online if people want to stay connected?
I guess, yeah, like Instagram's fine. And we've already covered my mixed ambivalent relationship with social media, but my Instagram DMs are always open. I try and respond to as many as I can, and so if you want to hit me up on there, that's more than welcome. And yeah, I'm just starting to think about TikTok and all that because that's like the new. Everyone's got to be on that. And to be fair, I'm actually really enjoying TikTok. I think it's a great platform. I started out being like, what is this like dance platform? Like, what the hell? And now it's clearly like a lot more than that.
Yeah, TikTok's wild. Apparently, like the Chinese are taking all of our data and stuff. But I'm like, you know what?
Oh, of course.
I don't really care. They can have it. If I get to watch better videos of people playing with their dogs, let's go.
No, definitely, man. There's definitely the Chinese are absolutely harvesting and manipulating our data, but I mean it's just like it's either that or the Silicon Valley companies. Right. I don't know, whatever you do on the internet isn't really private anymore, or
right.
It wasn't.
True. Exactly. Awesome. Well, hey, I want to respect your time. I know that we're at an hour and I know you've probably got a lot of things to do, but thanks a ton, Rich, for hanging out. I really appreciate it.
No, it was awesome to chat to you.
Yeah, I'll include all the links in the show notes to follow Daktyl. And yeah, definitely give his music a bump. Follow him on the socials. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much for having me, man. Appreciate it. All right, bro. Thank you so much.
Take it easy. All right, later. Peace. Hey, big shout out to Rich for joining today's episode. Make sure you guys give him a like, follow, subscribe. Check out his music. It's really dope. And if you, once again, haven't joined the newsletter, you'll be the first to get new podcast episodes released on Tuesdays. If you don't hate the podcast, please feel free to leave a review wherever you might be listening and subscribe, follow. It would really help me out a ton. Once again, if you want to join the newsletter, go to liveproducersonline.com/newsletter and you'll get some new updates and devices. And I'm sharing other interesting articles, such as the recent one about NFTs for artists. So make sure you stay tuned for more cool stuff, and I will see you guys very soon. Have an awesome week. Go bust out some hot tracks, and I'll see you next time.